All right, we're going to get started. Good evening. Welcome to the Brooklyn public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 2020 New York City water rate. My name is Omar Nazem, and I will be the hearing officer for tonight's meeting. I'd like to take just a minute to give you a brief overview of the process we'll go through today. First, I want to thank St. Francis College for hosting us in this attractive and spacious venue. We admire and appreciate. Second, please note we place certain documents in the official record maintained by the board. These documents include the notice designated me the hearing officer, a copy of the public notices listing the hearing, and an affidavit of publication of such notices, the draft of the proposed water and wastewater rate schedule, public information regarding water and wastewater rates, a copy of which is available at the front desk, and all written statements submitted by you, the members of the public, to the water rate. In just a minute, we'll hear a presentation from DEP Commissioner Remsen Street on the water rate proposal. Before that, I'd like to acknowledge just a couple of individuals here. We have Acting Deputy Commissioner of Customer Service, Vincent Mattarella, and the Water Board Deputy Treasurer, Greg Asurdo. Both are billing experts and customer service liaisons. If you have any questions about your water bill or anything to do with DEP or your water service, these guys can help you out. Also, if you've not yet signed up to speak, but if you would like to, please take a moment to do so at the front registration desk in the entryway. In addition, please know you can submit any written testimony to the New York City Water Board up until the close of business on June 13th. These statements will be entered into the record, and we distribute to the Water Board members for the review and consideration prior to the adoption of FY22 rates. I'd now like to introduce to you the gentlemen up here with me. We have Acting Chair this evening, Adam Freed, and Water Board member Jonathan Golden. Acting Chair Freed, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Usually we say thank you all for coming tonight. I'll say thank you for coming tonight. And just as a reminder, this is an important part of the Water Board process as we consider the proposal for a rate increase this year. We very much value and listen to public comments we hear, so we appreciate you being here tonight and the testimony that has been submitted in advance of tonight and up until the deadline. And we look forward to a Water Board hearing on Friday for final consideration.
Thank you, Acting Chair Freed. The Water Board tonight, and I'd like to invite DEP Commissioner Vincent Sapienza to come and make the presentation.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Vincent Sapienza. Board members and being here, staff. Go through a little bit of a background about DEP and some of the areas of budget spending, and then talk about the rate proposal. So just a little bit of background on DEP. We are the water and sewer utility for the city of New York. We provide about 1 billion gallons a day of clean drinking water to 9 million New Yorkers from upstate reservoirs, and then treat that wastewater once it's released to the sewer system. Just some of the investments that have been made by New Yorkers over the past generation have paid off in local harbor water quality improvements, and this is just one graphic that demonstrates that. Back in 1985, bacteria levels were much higher than they are today, as shown in this graph. And while we still have work to do, there's some areas of the harbor, Flushing Bay, Coney Island Creek, Newtown Creek, still work to do there, but generally the investments that we've made to date have paid off. This is what our 10-year capital plan, as announced by Mayor de Blasio last month, looks like. We have a 10-year capital plan for DEP of $20.1 billion. The breakdown is, I'll quickly go through it as follows: $2.77 billion for water supply improvements. That's mostly in the upstate reservoirs. BWT is our Bureau of Wastewater Treatment. These are upgrades to our wastewater treatment plants that will total about $5 billion. New and replacement water mains, $2 billion. SEQ is Southeast Queens. It's an area of the city that had never had a storm sewer system installed, so we're doing that now on $4.5 billion. New and replacement sewers, $3 billion, and about a quarter of our spending, $5.34 billion, is for federal and state mandates to comply with those. Just some highlights of the new $20 billion capital plan. It's an increase of $447 million over our prior plan. Just some bullets there. More money spending for water and sewer infrastructure, $59 million for green infrastructure. That's to reduce the amount of combined sewer overflows during wet weather. Upgrade work that we're doing in Long Island City, and this was despite of whether Amazon was coming or not. That work needed to be done. And $52 million for blue belts, primarily on Staten Island, but some in Queens as well, again, to reduce the amount of runoff into local waterways. Just a couple of highlights, some of the major work that's included in the 10-year capital plan. The completion of City Water Tunnel number 3. This project has been ongoing since the 1970s. It's completed through Manhattan and the Bronx. But work still needs to be done for the Brooklyn-Queens leg. These 2 shafts that are left. And the plan includes $605 million to complete that section of the plan. Green infrastructure, just mentioned a little while ago, is about $900 million in the 10-year capital plan to do green infrastructure programs throughout the city. We've already installed more than 4,000 curbside rain gardens around the city. Very popular. They do a great job of reducing a lot of runoff. And we want to continue doing those, not only in the city-owned right-of-ways, but in public school yards and even in private infrastructure. We want to encourage that. So now on to the rate proposal. For fiscal 20, our rate proposal is a 2.31% increase. This graph just gives you a historical perspective on the rate increases. Last year was 2.36, and the prior 2 years were zeros. Those zeros were largely attributable to Mayor de Blasio's return of the rental payment that the water system had made to the city for many years, since the 1980s. And that has helped to keep rates low, the return of the rental payment. As far as what the 2.31% increase would impact water and sewer users, here's just an example for different categories. For 1 and 2 family homes, the rate would increase their bill about $21.84 per year. For those that have metered apartments, condos and co-ops primarily, see an increase of about $16.22 per year. The multifamily conservation program, this is a charge that building owners can sign up for to have a fixed rate for each of the apartments in their building, would be an increase of $23.76. But the minimum charge on properties, these are the folks who use just under 100 gallons a day. We're keeping that, again, steady at $463.55 a year. A continued focus we have on affordability. We recognize that there are many of our neighbors who have a tough time paying their water bills. So we're continuing the home water assistance program, primarily for low-income folks, seniors. We'll get a $115 credit, as we have in the past. The multifamily assistance credit for those who sign up for it and agree to certain conservation measures, they can get a $250 per apartment credit. Again, we mentioned the minimum charge will stay the same. It's about 49 cents per day for properties that use low water and do a lot of conservation. And then a leak repair credit for those who promptly report their leaks. We can return some of the fees that would have otherwise been charged. New York City, water is one of the few things in the city that's cheaper than the national average. So this just goes back a few years. We have columns what New York City water and wastewater fees are for a typical 1 and 2 family home versus 30 large cities nationwide, and we're about the same. In the last few years, we've actually resulted in lower fees. We actually started in 2019 looking at a smaller volume usage per single-family house. In the past, it had been about 80,000 gallons per year that single-family homes used. But with all of the conservation that's done, low-flow fixtures and toilet, shower head, dishwasher, we've actually seen a reduction from about 80,000 to 70,000, and we're reflecting that gallonage Just a couple of policy updates that I just want to quickly talk about. On the minimum charge, we mentioned for the 6th consecutive year, we're leaving it at 49 cents per day. It's about $463 per year. Mentioned that. One other thing we want to add to our rate structure is that for accounts that have violations against them, and you can read up here, we will disallow those properties from enjoying some of the benefits that are included, such as obtaining an innocent purchaser status upon transfer of the property and receiving the leak forgiveness credit that we mentioned a minute ago. This is just what the budget looks like for DEP. So the bottom line in green is just the total overall expected expenditures. Fiscal 19 is ending on June 30th, so we're getting close to the end. We expect to spend about $3.757 billion on the system, and that includes servicing the debt for capital that we borrowed to do work on the infrastructure, DEP operations and maintenance, which includes chemicals, energy, salaries of all our employees, and water board expenses to fund these projects, to seek the capital. So that was fiscal 19, which is wrapping up now. For fiscal 20, which starts July 1st, we expect that we're going to spend $3.820 billion, and thus the request for the increase in the water rate. So just again, in summary, we are proposing that the rate increase be 2.31% for fiscal 20, which starts July 1st. We have already completed, after today's hearing, 4 of the 5 borough hearings. We have 1 left, which will be tomorrow on Staten Island. The board will then consider all the comments that they've received from the 5 borough hearings, and it'll be Friday to make a decision. And that's it. That's DEP's website. So thank you, and I'll turn it back over to the hearing officer.
Thank you, Commissioner Sapienza. This time I'd like to ask if, so I'd like to actually invite registered speakers to come make a presentation. You actually limit your comments to 5 minutes, no longer. We'll have a shot clock here to time you. Let's start with Michael DeLong from the Riverkeeper organization.
Sure. Use 3 mics. Well, thank you, Acting Chairman Freed and members of the board for the opportunity to comment tonight. I realize there aren't too many folks here, but we appreciate the opportunity for public input, and this is what good government looks like. I'm Mike DeLong. I'm a senior attorney with Hudson Riverkeeper. Riverkeeper is a nonprofit watchdog organization dedicated to defending the Hudson River and its tributaries and safeguarding the drinking water supply for 9.5 million New Yorkers. The city's water rates are, of course, intimately tied to the health of our water supply as well as the waters in and around New York. And I'm here tonight to submit just 3 comments. First is that the sewage pollution problem in New York City is worse than DEP lets on. And the rates should be raised commensurately to fix that problem. The second is that the lease payment, we're glad the lease payment is being suspended this year again, and we think that lease payment should be made permanent and should be suspended indefinitely. And last, the DEP's current 3-year timeline for its sustainable rate structure study must be expedited to be done by next year's next year's water rates, or when you're considering next year's water rates. And there must be a commitment to meaningful public engagement. So when we look at New York's modest 2.31 increase, it's less than other cities. It's 15.5% less than other cities, if I have that right. Other large cities have averaged 6.1% growth over the past 10 years compared to New York City's 5.6% growth. And yet our needs, our sewage and stormwater needs, are greater than any other cities. We have 20 billion gallons of raw sewage coming into the harbor every year. That is 72 Empire State Buildings full. That's in 2018, that meant that 1 out of every 3 days we had CSOs, combined sewer overflows, discharging raw sewage into our waters. And even when the LTCPs are done, DEP's current plans are finalized, the green infrastructure program is finished, we are still going to have roughly 18 billion gallons coming in. So if you look at a waterway like Flushing Creek up in Queens, when everything's completed, we'll have 1.2 billion gallons of raw sewage, or CSOs, sewage and polluted stormwater coming into that water body. So when we talk about the rates, the water rates are integral to fixing those problems, and so the rates should be increased, and we are actually calling for even greater increase than 2.31%. Second, suspending the lease payment is a great idea. We love that the mayor is doing that, and we fully support it, and we urge the water board to petition the mayor to make that permanent. Those funds can go into fixing things like our failing wastewater infrastructure, and they'll go into protecting our drinking water. And last, DEP should be expediting its sustainable rate structure study. 3 years is way too long to take to do a study on sustainable water rates. They could get this done in a year. It's just a question of, are they going to be mandated to? Right now they're not. This board should require that. Riverkeeper and Natural Resource Defense Council are now working on a stormwater rate dashboard tool. The tool will be available shortly so that this board and that other policymakers can fool around with the numbers and sort of see what would happen if you change the rate structure to separate out the stormwater fee. Our preliminary analysis of the dashboard tool and all of the numbers and data that went into it is that the average customer bill for owners of properties with large impervious surfaces would increase significantly. No surprise. And introducing the stormwater fee would redistribute revenue contributions away from multifamily buildings. So you have big box stores paying more, you have multifamily buildings paying less. Pretty simple. And so if you had that stormwater fee, we could then create an opportunity to reduce that amount of impervious surface through offering fee credits or green infrastructure retrofits. We could start incentivizing green infrastructure. And so that green infrastructure can then take the burden off the system, take the burden off DEP to treat our stormwater and ultimately improve the water quality all throughout New York's harbor. So I thank the Water Board for the opportunity to participate in the hearing today, and for the important role that you play in protecting our drinking water and cleaning up New York City's, the waters in and around New York City. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, Rebecca Pryor, also from Riverkeeper Organization.
I didn't actually put my name.
Oh, that's okay. Then Lucy Cotine from the Sierra Club.
Okay, I didn't put my name in, but I'll say.
We'd love to hear from you.
Lucy Coaching. Run into that. Yeah, I just happened to be in the neighborhood, so I dropped by, and the reason I heard about this meeting was I was recently at a swim meeting, and they mentioned this. But I was going to suggest this is a pretty important topic, our water supply and our sewage system and everything that goes with it. Why don't you do some outreach? So there may be more people than the 6 or so in this room who are actually interested in this topic. One easy way to do it is that every city council member, the borough president, they could include it in the notices they send out to the constituents. And I think this room should be full. This is what's more important than our water supply. And so I urge you in the future to do some more extended outreach so you have the proper hearing audience that you deserve. The other thing I was thinking, there's no outreach about saving water to homeowners. I own a home in Fort Greene, a small house. I have a 4-story brownstone house. I've never heard anything from the water board. This, like Con Ed is sending out notices, we'll give you free light bulbs, just get back to us. Why not do something to ask, maybe you can send out some water saving, have water saving in supplies that homeowners could use to reduce water usage. But even just information like, your faucet's dripping, here's what you need to do. But there's no communication on water to homeowners or tenants or any, as far as I know. And I think that's a pity, especially was raised before. We know that CSOs is a huge problem, and we need to reduce our water runoff. Right now, it's kind of popular with city council members to be giving out free barrels, rainwater collection barrels. But only a handful of people know about that, and even those who receive notice say, well, what's this for, what's it about? There's no information that goes with it. Anyway, I just think you could do a whole lot more. I don't know what kind of staff you have, a whole lot more with outreach and informing homeowners and tenants on conservation. So that's were my thoughts. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And next and final registered speaker is Alan Young, also from the Sierra Club.
Sure, pass.
Okay. I'd like to open it up. Would anyone else like to help them speak if you're not pre-registered? Any takers? Okay. All right, I think with that, I think we're ready to wrap this up. I'd remind you, anyone who wants to send written testimony can do so up until 5 p.m. on June 13th. The board will be formally meeting this Friday to consider and vote on the proposed rate increase. And we have our final public hearing tomorrow in Staten Island. Information about all of that and the rates in general is available on the water board's website. You can get that from DEP's website as well. Thank you for coming.